So, hi everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Maytal. As Melissa said, I'm a VP Business Growth at ironSource, been in the company for the past around 7.5 years. And I'm going to talk about the man versus the machine. I'm not sure it says so much right now, but it will make sense in a few seconds. And before we talk about the man versus the machine, I want to tell you something, which I don't know if you're quite aware of, but recently, in the past few years, automation is taking over, right? And I'm not talking about specifically autonomous cars riding the roads or the digital machines, right, cleaning our houses and stuff. I'm talking about our app economy and everything around that and everything around automation, specifically, I think, in the past 2 years. And here's a snapshot of how we see it from the ironSource level play perception. And we see here on your left side, on the UA side, we see everything around the adoption of our ROS optimizer, which is our UA automation tool that we have. So you see here from around Q1 of 2020, throughout the past 2 years, we reached about 62 and growing % of the spend of our advertisers already running through the ROS optimizer. And on the right side, we see everything around on the ad monetization side, okay? So we talk about automation on ad monetization, we talk about bidding, right? All of the channels for moving towards to bidding. And actually, when you look at level play publishers monetizing with bidding networks, already their 99% of their revenues are generated by bidding. Now, this may sound scary, right? Because automation and where is our place and like, okay, so where's the woman comes versus the machine, what we can do. But what I want to propose here is to look at it as a different way and not the woman versus the machine, but actually the woman and the machine. And when you look at that, I want to show you the approach that we have here with ironSource, which is basically taking automation and control and balancing between them. Okay, so we talked about automation on UA and on ad monetization side, which actually frees a lot of our time to make sure that we manage to impact our revenue and grow our revenues with control, okay? So control meaning everything that we do manually to actually increase our revenues and the app economy as a whole. And here at ironSource, we believe that you should always be balancing between automation and control by actually allowing you to have a full transparency. When we talk about transparency, we talk about the data, right? So if it's analytics or dashboards that on one hand will let you know what the automation performance is, how it looks like, right? To make sure that, okay, I trust automation, we're good there. But on the other side, also to have enough data to be able to control and manage everything that you do manually to make sure that you increase revenues. So let's talk about how we can actually, us like women and men, can have a significant impact on growth when you talk about the manual side of the things. I'm going to talk about 3 areas of opportunities. Obviously, there's much more, but today we're going to focus on 3. So the first one will be on the UA side when talking about custom product pages. Ellie touched it a bit before with Apple search ads, right? But we're going to talk about it in a different angle. We're going to talk about ad placement, on the monetization side, and how we can increase revenues there, making sure that after you acquire the users, you actually monetize them the best way. And to kind of round it up, we're going to talk about A/B tests, right? Okay, so I acquired users, I monetize them, and now I want to keep on testing, making sure that I optimize the circle and generate revenues. So let's start with the custom product pages. So just in case there's a chance you don't really know or quite understand what it means. So with iOS 15, Apple introduced the custom product pages. By the way, from now on, I'm going to say CPP, just because it's much easier, and custom product page is like too long. So they introduced CPP, which actually allows you to create a custom page on the App Store that reflects some specific elements, colors, characters, anything around your in-game experience of the user, and connecting that to the creative and your UA strategy. Actually, ironSource is the first SDK network to onboard and allow our advertisers to run CPP. And we've seen amazing results. So you can see here, we see up to almost 50% increases in IPM, and 40% increase in eCPM, which obviously gives these advertisers that are running with CPP a great buying power within our network. And actually what's interesting to see, so first of all, this is kind of the adoption of CPP on ironSource network. So already 44% of the spend of the UA running on ironSource is actually utilizing CPP and testing them as we go. But even more interesting thing that we saw is actually 90% of the advertisers utilizing CPP are actually running their UA on our ROS optimizer, meaning our ROS optimizer gave them the time to actually free themselves from manually bidding, right? Uploading CSVs and stuff like that, trusting the model, trusting the product, and then going and find new opportunity to actually optimize their creative flow and increase IPMs. And if you are here in the auditorium asking yourself, okay, but I'm not sure if it's relevant for me, is it not? So it was also interesting to see, besides obviously the increase that we have seen from the start of the year, like 6 times the number of advertisers actually using CPP. It's also interesting to see that we see it across all genres. So it can be from the hyper-casual, casual game developers to the strategy one, casino, and even the lifestyle ones in the crowd. Okay, so let's talk about practice. So when we talk about CPP, we actually look at it from different strategies, different angles. So the first one will be optimizing towards the audience. Okay, so we talk about the audience. It actually means that you can localize in a way your store page, to complement the audience that you're targeting. It can be by language. It can be by utilizing specific unique holidays that this audience has. So let's say here in Israel, I don't know if you know, we're celebrating our New Year's Eve next week. So if you want to target an Israeli audience, you can create a store page celebrating Rosh Hashanah, which is how we call the New Year's Eve for us. So that's when you talk about the audience, when you want to talk about the ones that you are targeting and you want to buy. The second strategy would be to actually complement the creatives that you're running, the ads that you're running. So if you're running with a specific character, a specific color, a specific element that you have in the game, it only makes sense to show after the user gets to the show, to show the same elements to the user, right? It just makes the flow much better and increase CVRs by a lot. And this is actually a case that we had, a success case that we had by Pocket Gems, actually using the second strategic that we mentioned. So they've been running with a creative that was really good and the best creative for a long time. And then on the upper side, you see the default product page that they had. And then they decided to kind of test a new product page and complementing, again, the creative with the specific features, the product page with the specific features that they see in the creative, which actually ended up with more than 16% increase in IPMs. And the UA guys in the audience, you know that a 16% increase in IPM is really incremental to our UA. So now we're going to go to the second one, which is ad placement, talking about the other side on monetization. And for that, I'm not going to be the speaker. I'm going to ask Anna, a game design consultant, to come and talk.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anna. I am in game development industry for 13 years, and I'm a game designer. I live and breathe game design for all those years. And what I do in ironSource, I'm around 7 years. Right now, I'm leading a very unique activity that we're calling game design consultancy, or also ad strategy. And I want to share with you a bit how do we approach ad placements, ad monetization, but from the players, from the game design point of view, which is a bit different from what you're usually used to. Going back to a few hours ago, the session that Yuval gave When we're talking about ad monetization, there is two things that you're focusing. First of all, is the most time consuming and time spent is ad monetization. And what I'm going to open a bit a curtain for you is ad strategy is where you might be missing out. Yuval put a picture of me, so I had to put a picture of him instead. Not instead. What are the two main things that you're looking at when you're going from the game design perspective? Is, of course, data. This whole conference is about data. And also user motivations and needs. We're going to touch that. And I want to walk you through 4 steps that we're taking inside of our team, inside of game design consultancy. How do we approach the games and how do we suggest you to look at improving your ad monetization? First of all, data is the king. You need to understand the data. If we just were running on the data, the machine could do that. We're not machines. We need to understand what is behind that. So, for example, here is like 2 placements inside of your game. One has a really low engagement rate, which means players are not clicking on this rewarded video. But the impressions per engaged user is really high. What does that mean? That the players, they don't see displacements, or they don't notice, or it's really hard to get to it. But those who find, they actually looking at a lot and they find the value. There is another example of placement B, where the engagement rate is pretty high, but the impressions per engaged user is low. What that could mean is maybe it wasn't an exciting reward that the player got. Maybe they didn't need this reward anymore. Always look beyond your data. What does it mean? Sometimes you need to open your own app and see what's wrong with that. Also, understand why your user, you need to know your players. This is the pretty classic example of user motivation model. It's been developed by Quantic Foundry. They did a very extensive research. It's called Gamer Motivational Model, but it doesn't limit to gaming. It's kind of the same for the apps as well. And in every game, there are different types of players, and you need to understand what players do you have. So, for example, if you have an achiever, which is like achievement, I want more. They really want more. They want all the weapons, all the vanity items, complete all the missions for all 3 stars. So take advantage of that. Understand that, know that. Where they spend the most time, what is the currency, where they're getting the currency the most, where they're spending the currency the most, where they're spending most time in their game, what are their goals, and use that for your own advantage. So if you're saying like, okay, achievement, okay, if he wants to acquire all the collectibles and all trophies, maybe make a vanity item rewarded video placement to satisfy them. There is a tricky example to that, for example, mid-core and hardcore games, they often say that their paying users who are achievers, they're watching more rewarded videos than non-paying users. And this is exactly the motivation of the user that you can use. If he wants to complete all the missions, offer them small help with the rewarded video when they fail, so they can actually get that 3 stars from the level. If they want the most powerful weapon or equipment, make them try out the most powerful weapon or equipment, and then they might even come back and buy it for the real money. If we're continuing, the third thing is know only your players, but also the competitors. And if you're saying, oh no, I don't have competitors, yes you do. You always do. Even if it's the competitor not for the whole game or app, but some of the mechanic, it will be still a competitor. Play or use the apps that are similar, understand them. Do they have more placements, less placements? Where do they have their placements? How their users and their user motivation, that we already know about, is different in your app or a game and theirs. Play beyond. Use more apps, get inspired. Here's a really interesting example of one of the top first-person shooters that had they had a small store with vanity items that you could get with the rewarded video. The store was never updated, it was like there and that's it. On the other side, there is completely different game, which is a racing game that doesn't even have ad monetization, but they have a very nice store that is updated on daily, weekly, bi-weekly basis, also with vanity items. Getting inspired by one game that has basically the same user motivation. I'm an achiever, I want everything, I want all the things. They started to update their store on a monthly basis, which increased in the revenue for displacement. Get inspired by other things that are out there. I know you think, Anna, that's all good and amazing, but how does that come to practice? A few examples. Midcore RPG, they had a placement that wasn't giving direct reward to the user. And the users there, they want faster, they want more, but they weren't getting what they need. What the developer did, they put placements that gave exactly what player wanted, but with the direct reward after watching the video. Just adding one placement. And you can see the increase, the crazy increase in the engaged users. You can see crazy increase almost twice in the engagement rate. Eventually, they repeated that trick one more time, seeing also the increase by understanding their player need in the game. They managed to reach to the top benchmarks, the one that you talked about. Also, our DAO increased almost twice. And leading beauty up, that's actually me on the photo, making myself beautiful. The users were not seeing the interstitials because they were leaving before the interstitials were on the screen. So just putting one placement, they didn't remove the placement that they had, they just put the placement when the users were actually processing their photos, just like a natural pause in their flow. Understanding where is this pause in the flow and putting the interstitial, crazy increase, almost 50% ARPU, daily revenue, you can see, grew up and became stable. I hope it was helpful. Back to Maytal.
Hi, me again. So I talked about the UA side, and Anna just covered everything around ad placement on the monetization side. And we're gonna close it up with A/B test. Now, before we talk about why and how, I wanna show you this graph, which is, I find very interesting and also kind of connecting it to the balance between automation and control. So what you see here, the green line is the bidding adoption, right, what we saw before. And on the same kind of time period, we see also the number of tests, A/B tests, that our publishers on LevelPlay are running. And you can see that it's actually growing at the same pace, right? As more of the revenues are managed by bidding networks, they have more time to actually conduct by themselves their A/B tests. And we'll see now also why it's so important. So let's talk about why should we A/B test. So first one is that A/B test really allows you to measure the impact of any in-game change that you want to have or any change to the way that you optimize the monetizations of your users, right? And it allows you to do that without it actually hurting your game KPIs, right? Because you do it on a small group of audience and you can actually take decisions before you take it out to production and make the change if it's on the game itself or the optimization method that you have to the entire group of the users that you have in the game. The third why is actually it allows you to predict ARPU and predict uplift in retention, which is obviously everything that we're looking for, all right? So while do the test, you can actually see the impact of a smaller audience. We'll talk in a minute of like how you do it in the right way, but if you do it on the right way, it gives you the prediction of the entire performance you're gonna see afterwards. And the fourth one will be you learn about the user's behavior. The users behave differently as they go within the game, and this allows you to learn about the users, again, on an A/B test environment and not when you test on everything together. So if you're not doing A/B tests, it means that you're actually leaving money on the table. And what we see today is that when we talk about the level play A/B test that our publishers are running, 62% of the test ends up where the B, the test group, wins over the control group, meaning they performed good tests that allows them to actually take then the changes that they did on the big group and kind of apply it to all of their users. And what they saw is an average of 7% increase in LTV, which is amazing. Obviously, it increases our revenues by a lot. And by the way, this is the average. We saw cases where it was really much more than that. So what can you A/B test? You can basically A/B test a lot, and I can tell you that here at ironSource, we always work on the product side to give you more and more capabilities to A/B test more and more features and more optimization methods. But when you kind of focus on the biggest ones that have the biggest impact on LTV, so we talk first about the new bidding networks. If you want to add a bidding network or you want to transition a network that you're already monetizing with towards bidding, always test that before you actually have it to change, on all of the traffic. The second one is testing traditional waterfalls. So if you have a network that is still running traditionally and you want to apply changes, apply different CPMs, right, pricing models and pricing points, so you should always A/B test that before. You can see also something around like user segmentation and ad placements, right? Anna just talked about the impact that it can have. So obviously testing these things when it comes to capping mechanisms or pacing and then different rewards, this is also one of the kind of the strongest A/B tests that we're seeing our publishers running, and we really recommend them doing, and everything around banner refreshment rate. So now let's talk about the how. Hopefully I convinced you to do it. So let's talk about the how. I'm going to run through 4 things you should be doing and 2 things you should avoid doing. So let's start with the do's. So do challenge existing strategies. Okay, I mentioned it before. The user behavior is dynamic. It can change between the different lifetime in the game, or if it can be changed, by the impact of the UA, right? If you start to target a new audience at the UA side, so then they can behave differently than what you know. So always challenge the existing strategies that you have. The second one will be test a wide cohort of users, mostly to make sure that you include the new ones that you just acquired and the old ones. Again, because they're not necessarily behaving the same, and you want to see the impact on all different audiences that you have before you actually take it into production. The third one will be look at both overall and also granular results. And by that I mean, we always look at okay, that's nice, a 7% increase in LTV, I'm good, let's go, right? So that's amazing, but we need to make sure that we break it down. Sometimes we'll see different audiences, let's say from different countries. We're going to see different performance of the test that we're doing on different channels, media channels, right? So just make sure that you're not kind of blown away from the 7% increase overall. Make sure before you apply to everyone that it actually makes sense on all of the different breakdowns. And the last one will be test everything. And when I say everything, I really mean everything. And again, as I mentioned, we on the product side really work on giving you the tools to be able to do that. So that's the do's. Let's talk about what you should be not doing. Don't run too long or too short tests, okay? Because if you run a too long test, you might have the risk of actually hurting your KPIs, okay? So that's one. So don't run it for like a month or 2 or something like that. But also don't run it for too short. If you run a test for only a few hours, even like a day or 2, you'll not be able to hit all of the do's that we talked about in like reaching all of the audience, a big enough audience that you want to have before you actually make a decision. And the second one will be do not test different variations at the same time. Because if you do test different things, different changes at the same time, and then you see the uplift, let's say in retention, or some trend going down with revenues, you might not be able to say what happened and what caused what, right? So just make sure that you test each variation at the same time. If you're doing it not too long, you should be able to run as many A/B tests as you want. Okay, so let's recap and what we talked about. So it is the woman and the machine, also men, but I'm a woman. So automation is taking over, that's right, we're loving it. The tools that we have automated are bringing us amazing results, amazing performance. If you're not there yet with us, I welcome you to try all of the tools that we have. But make sure to balance between the automation and control. Make sure that when you free yourself from the manual things that you're doing towards automation, you also find the places where you can actually drive the impact and find new growth opportunities. Thank you.